Welcome to another episode of Building a Modern Employer Brand podcast, where we explore the dimensions of employer branding in this constantly evolving work landscape, and more specifically today, the landscape of hybrid work. I'm your host, Susanna Rantanen, Finland's pioneer in employer branding and the creator of the magnetic employer branding method. And if you're new to this podcast, I'm a business coach specializing in people branding and talent marketing, but I also work as a strategic employer branding consultant at our family business, the Helsinki-based employer branding agency, Emine. And this podcast is for those who want to learn how to build employer brands that attract and retain the talents the business needs for success. Today, we're going to delve into a topic that's defining the future of work. And this is, of course, the hybrid work model that we've been accustomed to for a little while already, ever since the pandemic. And as businesses blend in office and remote working, the challenge is to ensure a unified employer brand message and a positive employee experience. So how do we navigate employer branding in this hybrid work world? The hybrid work model is a captivating work model in the modern workplace because it blends the traditional in-office work and the remote work, offering a much more flexible working environment that I guess most organizations and employees have been used to prior to pandemic, and that this new opportunity can potentially cater to the diverse needs and preferences of employees, but also employers. So this model combines, or at least aims to combine, the structured environment of a office work where the flexibility and independence of remote work exists. And I'm not saying that remote work is new. Of course, it's not new. I mean, I founded our agency back in 2012, and my first startup already back in 2010. And we've always worked remote. We've had offices as well, but ever since 2021, we've worked 100% remote. So I'm not saying that remote work is new, but combining this kind of I guess, more fully hybrid way of work is new because it's a permanent thing. And it is a reaction to the changing dynamics of the work life. It's been driven by technological advancements prior to the pandemic, and it existed, as said, way before the global pandemic even took place. But it started to gain traction during the pandemic. And the great thing about this hybrid model is that it caters to diverse employee needs while fostering a culture of trust and autonomy. However, it also presents a unique challenge for employer branding because the goal is to create this seamless employer brand experience, whether an employee is working from this high-rise office in New York, a co-working space in the heart of my Helsinki, or from a cozy home office in Copenhagen. So how do you create this seamless employer brand experience where your employees' real work environment can be very different from person to person? Well, obviously, employer branding isn't static either. It's dynamic. It needs to evolve with the changes in the work life and all the various working models, the constant changes in the operational business environment, and also changes in marketing, which is something you probably don't consider. But employer branding is an act of marketing. So marketing has been changing and evolving also with the digital movement, with social media, and all the trends that are going through social media sort of year to year. Everything changes, and we have to adjust the way we employer brand and use the, for example, technology and all these platforms in our employer branding. Now, in a hybrid work environment, the core of your employer brand should resonate in both physical and those virtual workspaces. And that can make employer branding difficult, as your employer brand must stem from the real employee experiences, which, as said, can be very different depending on where people work, how they feel connected to their colleagues, and especially their nearest manager, and how they are being kept in touch with what happens in the workplace and the organization. Successful employer branding requires ensuring that the brand experience is consistent, engaging, and that it reflects the organizational culture and values, irrespective of where your employees are stationed. If you were building your employer brand before the pandemic started and all the organizational changes that kind of accelerated as the pandemic took on, it's vital to understand the changes those years of living in the pandemic brought on your organization. No organization that existed before pandemic came out of pandemic quite the same. And the pandemic era, that was not a permanent era. So there's also life after the pandemic and how the organizations have sort of evolved since the pandemic accelerated all these changes. So before, during, and after. So you're now in a situation that you have to reassess your employer brand in the world of hybrid work. Then you need to know, obviously, the benefits of a hybrid work model. Realigning your employer brand more specifically with these key benefits and how they appear in your organization, specifically in your organization, are, I would say, an extremely important area of iteration for your employer brand in comparison to before the pandemic, during the pandemic, and thereafter. So let's dig into these key benefits, shall we? So first of all, we have the flexibility. Employees are, of course, enjoying the flexibility that they're able to manage their work and manage their life. Their schedules around their personal lives can be planned and managed much better now. And this flexibility can lead to improved work-life balance, which in turn can enhance the job satisfaction and retention rates. So how does your organization support and drive flexibility at work, especially in connection with a better work-life balance? Now, be specific and make sure that your internal and external audiences understand what does flexibility specifically mean in your context, in your organization. And not just that, but also what does it not mean? Because all of us have this idea of what flexibility means to us. And unless we are being informed to detail what it means in your context and what it doesn't mean, then we assume that our interpretation of flexibility aligns with yours. So it's very important that you are specific about how you describe what flexibility means and doesn't mean in your organization past pandemic. Another key benefit is access to a broader talent pool. And this is obviously for the organizations. However, this is also actually for job seekers because now they also have an access to a broader job pool, employer workplace pool. So the same as employees or job seekers, organizations can now also tap into a much broader talent pool as the geographical constraints are being minimized. And this is a specific beneficial or benefit in this rather competitive job market, especially for the roles where the scarcity exists for skilled professionals. However, you have to remember that if you are still expecting employees to travel to a physical work location, how often do you expect them to travel? And how do you support the travel? Or do you? Can you offer maybe more than one physical location as an option? And what type of work is expected to be taking place during the on-site days? The broader talent pool doesn't exist for you if the rules for working at the office are very strict. Benefit number 3 is reduced commute stress, which I think you can relate to, as it applies obviously to everybody working in your organization, not just your employees, but yourself, the management, the directors, and so on. So when we reduce the need to commute daily, everybody can save time and money, which obviously contributes to a better work-life balance, but also it's environmentally friendly. Benefit number 4, general cost savings. Already mentioned the cost savings in terms of the daily commuting, but other cost savings are also available and a benefit of a more hybrid work model, because businesses can also save on operational costs such as utilities, the office space. We can squeeze into smaller office spaces when we don't have everyone on board every day. Although I have to say that some of these savings may be offset by the need for advanced technology solutions that are supporting remote work. Well, let's talk about the challenges of the hybrid work model. The first thing that comes to my mind, because this is something that I've heard, I would say endlessly, is the challenge of communication and collaboration. One of the I think one of what the hybrid work or the remote work brings in are the challenges in maintaining a very effective communication and collaboration among teams that are distributed, all over the place. So first of all, obviously the internal communication, because a lot of that talk that happens in the corridors or by the coffee machine after meetings or before meetings, that doesn't exist anymore. And that is crucial to employee satisfaction. So how do you manage communication internally? Also, the expectations for internal communication have changed for the better. It's no longer about one way sort of informing that this and these things happen or have happened already. It's more about, I guess, developing and maintaining a very effective infrastructure platform for dialogue between everybody. And this can be one of the winning elements of your employer brand if you have sort of discovered a very great way to communicate and collaborate and promote dialogue internally, regardless of where people are. Because this is certainly an area that requires a lot of attention and can kind of make or break your appeal as a hybrid employer. Obviously, the other challenge, second challenge, has to do with your company culture, because keeping this unified company culture and ensuring that all of your employees, especially new ones, feel included and engaged, this is this is obviously much more challenging in a hybrid model. That's why your organization probably requires a realignment process for your company culture, because it certainly has changed, and probably quite significantly, since the pandemic started and since it has ended. So do you think that your company culture is up to date? Because it's very important to establish what it is today, what it needs to be. Is it up to date? Does it support collaboration, communication in such a hybrid organization? Make sure it is, because your modern employer brand stems from your company culture and the employee experiences thereafter. So you want to make sure that you're not building and promoting a culture that no longer exists and feels kind of detrimental to your employer attraction. A third challenge can be your performance management. So performance assessments can turn into a challenge when we're not kind of visibly available to how we work and how we sort of contribute to other people's work. So organizations may need to revamp their evaluation metrics and processes to ensure that performance management is fair and accurate. So this is also another very vital element in employee satisfaction and productivity. And if people feel that their managers have kind of lost sight of their work performance and that they feel that they're no longer being evaluated or assessed rightly, this can lead to major dissatisfaction. And that certainly has a negative impact on your employer brand, internally and externally. So let's talk about the implications of the hybrid model on employer branding. So the hybrid work model, that kind of necessitates a rethink in employer branding strategies. The communication of the brand's values, culture, and your employee experiences, as well as your employee promises, need to match and resonate with this flexible work model. Even if you are still not quite sure how your culture will end up looking, if you are in a kind of a middle of a change process, you should still showcase how you are adapting your organization to the new ways of work and delivering that customer promise. So you need to showcase and communicate the expected benefits that those changes to your culture are expected to bring to your employees and how these changes will align with your business values, with your obviously goals and culture. Be specific. Again, I can't emphasize being specific enough when it comes to employer brand communication and marketing. Being specific about what will be affected and what will not be affected will help your employees understand and accept those changes better. Now, in crafting your employer branding strategy around this hybrid model, it's crucial to highlight the tangible and the intangible benefits that this will offer to your employees, and be specific. Now, additionally, showcasing, for example, real people stories of how your organization is making the hybrid model work and the positive impact it has had on employees, these can significantly bolster your employer brand. And the hybrid model is not just a temporary solution, but likely a long-term shift in how we perceive and engage in our work. So it offers kind of a fertile ground, if you like, to innovate and enhance your employee branding strategies, aligning with the evolving expectations your employees have, but also what your middle managers have for a modern work life and for the modern workforce. Now, I'm still saying this a few years past the pandemic because I still see organizations trying to make sense of how their working models will be structured and what works and what doesn't work. And the good thing is that by now you probably have gathered enough experience and learned how to redefine your way of hybrid work or what you need to redefine in your ways of hybrid work. And that's why it makes sense to make it official now and make sure that your culture, your values, your employer brand messages are aligned with the way you envision your organization tackling the years to come. All right, so let's finish this episode with 4 important strategic elements that will help you accelerate a more unified employer brand message. Are you ready? So number 1 strategy is obviously the strategy of consistent internal and external communication. Now, regular and clear communication is key. It's absolutely a key. So utilize digital platforms to keep that dialogue going. You have to have it ongoing. Share company updates, celebrate achievements, ask for feedback, have a discussion, have a conversation, have a dialogue with people, learn from each other. But be selective, centrally selective, what platforms you will use for communication and what kind of communication goes into which digital solution. Because one of the key learnings during the earlier years of digitalizing workplaces was not to give the employees a full freedom of choice when it comes to digital communication platforms, because that only resulted in a lot of anxiety over constantly beeping apps, multiple apps, breaking any chance for concentration and kind of a sound headspace. Strategy number 2 is virtual onboarding and training. Now, because you are not seeing your new employees necessarily physically at all, it's all virtual and can be virtual for a long time, you have to be very mindful about how to make onboarding make them feel extremely inclusive and welcome. So what can you do to create as engaging virtual onboarding as possible with training programs that kind of imbue the brand's essence from day one? That's a really, really important question that you need to think about and discuss in the organization. Many organizations are leveraging learning systems to make sure that a location-free training is still a quality training. Just remember to include tests to make sure that people are actually learning and adapting independently. Strategy number 3 is inclusive culture. Now, foster an inclusive culture that values contributions from both in-office and remote employees. Make sure that you encourage collaboration and that you mindfully create opportunities for cross-functional interactions. This can be very beneficial for the people and the organization. And I think that this kind of a hybrid work model has kind of opened the door for this, because the larger the organization, the more we've worked in kind of silos, because we've been physically in one place. So now that we're not physically in the same space anymore, other than occasionally, opening the doors to breaking those silos and including, colleagues from even all over the world, and encouraging that collaboration, and that can be super beneficial, contributing to greater job satisfaction, learning, career opportunities, camaraderie at the minimum. Strategy number 4, feedback loops. Establish feedback loops to understand employee experiences and perceptions. Now that people have very different work environments, and use this insight to iterate your hybrid work culture and refine that communication. If you are more interested in these 4 strategies helping you to create a unified employer brand in a hybrid workplace, why don't you go to modernemployerbrand.com to /podcast 156 and download these 4 strategies with some additional insight and tips how to work with these. Alrighty, let's talk about how to enhance employee experience. Now, positive employee experience is literally the linchpin in successful employer branding. It's all about creating this environment where your employees feel heard, they feel valued and engaged and aligned with your company's vision and mission and purpose and customer promise and goals. And in a hybrid work model, obviously this has to include providing the necessary resources, regardless of where you're located, where you're working, and supporting your employees to foster this sense of community, recognizing the achievements, regardless of whether you work at the office or remote. And navigating employer branding in such a hybrid work world is, you have to embrace the change. You have to sell the benefits of change for your people, and you have to help everyone to adapt to a culture that very much resonates with your brand's ethos, irrespective of those geographical boundaries. As we have stepped into this new era of work, evolving our employer branding strategies is not just essential, it's inevitable. Sorry. And with the right approach, this hybrid work model can be a catalyst for building a stronger, more cohesive employer brand. Alrighty, that's all for this week, my friends. Like always, I like to hear your thoughts, your opinions, your feedback, your comments on this episode and the topic of this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your HR and employer branding colleagues. And stay tuned for more insightful episodes on mastering the employer branding edge in the modern world. My name is Susanna Rantanen, and I'm your guide to building the modern and magnetic employer brand. Until next week. Moi moi!